What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty here with another episode of Steelers War, and we are back. We've had a lot of global perspectives over the last few days. It was so fun to do all that content with Sean White, but we are back with another Steelers War. To all the new subs out there, we've had a lot of subs. We've had over 50 subs in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks. Welcome to the channel. If you're not a sub yet, consider hitting that sub button. Then you can get all the notifications. You'll know when we're doing our lives. You'll get our posts as well with different things. We've done some fan-based polls as well. And we've got a few things exciting that will happen once we hit the 500 sub mark. So consider supporting us with that sub button. If you're a sub and you're liking your content, hit that like button. It tells me the sorts of things you're really, really enjoying. All right, today we are talking about Ryan Watts. I've wanted this video for a while, but we've had to go through all the draft picks. There have been some other narratives around some free agents and the wide receiver and a trade and cornerback and all this different stuff. We thought we'd do something different with the Jeremiah Moon video, which I think's done pretty well for the channel. So if you're new to us via the Jeremiah Moon video, well, welcome. But we are talking Ryan Watts, the cornerback, possibly safety, out of Texas. I am a Longhorn fan. If you're new to the channel, the top Longhorns are actually the college team I support. So I'm quite well aware of who Ryan Watts is. I didn't mind him. It was interesting when I heard that the Steelers were in on him pre-draft. I thought that was kind of interesting. He's very much a Cory Trice avatar, Joey Porter Jr. type. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to recap Cory Trice because technically we have not seen him play for the Steelers. Remember, he got injured before the Steelers season. So we're going to look at Cory Trice and refresh on who he is, look at who Ryan Watts is, and look at how they either fit in together or is there an odd man out situation. Let's get straight into it. All right, so let's talk about Cory Trice first. 5-year player at Purdue, had a few injuries, so he only played 1 game in his first year in 2018. He only played 6 games in 2020. Obviously, there was the COVID year as well, and then played 2 games in 2021. But had a good year in 2022 and a good year in 2019. In 2022, that was his final year, because remember, he was picked in the 2023 NFL draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 7th round. I think it was pick 232 off the top of my head. But pick 7 was around 7, pick 24. I think it was 232. It was off the top of my head. Anyway, so obviously he picked out of Purdue 2022, bit of experience, had 2 interceptions in his final year, had 3 interceptions in 2019. So when he was on the field and productive, and he was able to actually, when I say he was productive, he was able to get interceptions. So in the 2 games in the 2 years he played more than 10 games, he had minimum of 2 interceptions. So that's pretty good. He had 15 pass defenses. 10 of those came in his last year for Purdue. He had a really good season that year. If it had been at a bigger college, his draft stock would have been way higher. You might have seen him go higher than where Ryan Watts went in a very good Texas team. Ryan Watts went 6th round, 196th overall, as the thumbnail of our video says. But they're quite different players. Now, Cory Trice played, I went through 5 pages of PFF because I didn't collate it. PFF, the only way you can look at where people played college snaps with. But Cory Trice played almost exclusively outside corner versus a slot or a box player. I think it was something like, when I did the rough maths, it was like over 90%. I think it was probably more like almost 95% he played over almost 1,500 snaps in college. And most of that was, because I don't think, Sports Reference don't count those snaps, but which is Pro Football Reference's college site. But yeah, he had about 1,500 snaps overall in college, and as I say, more than 1,300 of those were at the corner position, which is a wide corner. Cory Trice coming out was given a 6.14 grade, an NFL grade. So 6s are usually like a backup plus. They say potential to be a starter. Real interesting player, very athletic, 6'3", 206 pounds, 32 and 3/8-inch arms, hand size of 9 3/4. He was the 21st best cornerback based on his overall combine rank. He was 81. He got an 81 athleticism score, so he was the 11th best on athleticism, but his college production score is where he fell down from the pack. If you look at him, though, 4.4, 47, 40-yard dash time. Really, they projected him to go around 4 to 5, so getting around 7 was considered a steal. We're all really high on it. I was really high on it. I thought he'd be around 5 or 6 guy at worst. He was on my top 70 players, the Steelers to draft across the 3 days in 2023, so I was really happy to see him picked. His pluses are obviously his size and athleticism, capable of forcing rerouting from the receiver. He's, according to his draft profile, as you can see on the screen in front of you, He was really good at shedding blocks. He can use his size advantage really well. He's quick twitch for a big guy. But at the same time, his weaknesses were plays too tall for a clean route phase, below average long speed. His hips kind of gave away where he was going, which causes issues in man coverage. Had clunky hips as well. These are things you usually associate with a bigger bloke. Technique could be a little bit troublesome with downfield throws, and below average field aggression as a run supporter, considering his size. So kind of interesting. And that's the thing is about when him playing wide, not playing the box. These are obviously things that were seen at the college level. If we go to Ryan Watts, right, well, let's look at what his production and his profile before we look at the two against each other. So with Ryan Watts, he played at Ohio State. He played at the Texas Longhorns. He had 3 interceptions overall. He had none last year. Was used in a variety of roles in the secondary for the Longhorns. He did have 3 pass defenses. So he comes in with 3 interceptions versus Cory Trice's 5. He comes in with 6 pass defenses. But he is more of a guy that's going to come into the box. He's more of a guy that's going to be a big hit guy. He wasn't the starting corner for them. Purdue really did rely on Cory Trice a lot when he was able to play and was available. Ryan Watts has played a lot more games. He's a versatile guy. Big G from the Pump Your Brakes podcast that Shannon does with him. He was like Ohio State ran that kid out of town. I think that Ryan Watts is going to, I still agree with what I said on draft day, which I'll repeat later on in the show. But I think there's a different lens that you've got to look at Ryan Watts with Cory Trice. But anyway, that was his production in overall in college. 3 interceptions, 6 pass defenses. Doesn't seem like much. Had a 4.53 40-yard dash time. He was the 26th best cornerback, but he was the 11th best in terms of athleticism. Exactly the same as Cory Trice. He's 2 pounds heavier than Cory Trice. He's the same height as Cory Trice. He has a bigger arm by over 1.5 inches, or 1.25 inches, bigger arm size. He's got a similar hand size. He did get given a lower rating as an average backup or special teamer, according to his draft profile, but athletically, he's very much a similar situation. He's only 0.06 different in 40-yard dash time, and I think he ran faster at his pro day as well. He was predicted to go around 6 to 7. That is where he went. They talked about his, Lance Zierlein. He said he had outstanding size with rare length, traits and experience to transition to safety. That's a key thing for us to note. Capable lining up over slot tight ends. Again, very key trait to note. A booming striker once he locks in and hits it down. He is a very forceful tackler for a cornerback. Works around or through blockers with his run support, has an opportunity to play right away. And the Steelers need people playing right away on special teams, especially gunners with no Boykin. This could be really helpful with Ryan Watts. They talked about his below average foot speed. He's a long strider, so he's got to match that to routes better. They talked about some of the looks that he gives in locating and throw. That was a similar situation with Cory Trice's profile, if you remember. Questionable deep speed, to say deeper than the deepest. I kind of hate when people do draft profiles with those sorts of traits in them. It kind of means a little bit of nothing. And could take time to recognize proper pursuit angles. That's all about coaching, right? You look at Ryan Watts overall, pretty decent grades. The thing that stood out to me, putting aside whether people hate PFF or not, his tackling grade was above 75 for 3 of the years that he played in. And last year it was an 85. It was pretty cool to see that. His missed tackle numbers are very small, an average of 9.3%. That is a very low number for a lot of cornerbacks, and I'll contextualize that in a moment. But 2.5% missed tackles last year, 2.5%. That is incredible. He made 30 tackles. You see a lot higher than that for defensive backs. He has allowed a 65.9% completion rate, Ryan Watts, on all receptions thrown his way, allowing 60 receptions off 91 targets. He's allowed 811 yards in total in his college career. It's an average of 13.5, but obviously when you played in a deeper corner, that can come into the mix. They talk about him having 5 PBUs and only 3 interceptions, but I go off Sports Reference. I trust Pro Football Reference's stats more. And he, again, has pretty much played a lot more corner designation in terms of his snap count alignment, but he's played a lot more box than Cory Trice, which lends you to believe that's where the Steelers could be looking at him. I believe Ryan Watts, I will say this before we get into the next couple of points before we close out the show. I believe Ryan Watts will be a safety in the NFL. I believe he'll be predominantly used, though. Consider him a tight end defender. And that is why I like the pick, because I talked all draft process about guys like Kaiton Oldapo. I talked about a guy like a Jaden Hicks to mark up as a strong safety. I talked about, there was actually a number of safeties that we went through. I talked about James Williams. I wanted the Steelers to get someone outside of Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick that could mark up on a big tight end in the NFL, particularly a big tight end in the AFC North and the AFC with guys like Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely with the Ravens. The Bengals just picked 2 tight ends as well. The Browns having Njoku. You also look at Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid over at the Buffalo Bills. Like, I can go on, but there are a lot of good tight ends. You look at Michael Mayer now and Brock Bowers at the Raiders. Like, you are going to have to win in the AFC and particularly AFC North. You've got to be able to stop tight ends. And the Steelers were, part of my language, shit at that last year. They were terrible. Keanu Neal was injured a lot, and they struggled there big time. It was atrocious. It needs to be fixed. It's been really bad since Terrell Edmonds left the Steelers, which is why he should still be considered a possible free agent trade, a free agent target for the Steelers. But anyway, Ryan Watts has got the body type, the ability, the hard tackling to become a safety cornerback hybrid or very much a box player at the edge of that box into that intermediate passing game and a tight end defender. But I wanted to give you something, a really cool thing that I looked up with that 2.5%. If you look at all draft eligible corners last year in college football that played 20% of the total snaps, because the most cornerback played, because if you really look at any less than that, then we're looking at a small sample size. Ryan Watts had over 400. He had over 422 snaps that he played. Right, that's quite a bit compared to the other guys at the top of this list. Right, you look at the other guys at the top of this list in terms of missed tackles. Miles Battle had 454 snaps. Bertel Edwards had 489. There's some guys in there with less, with 300. Thomas Harper had 438. Anyway, my point being is that Ennis Rakestraw had 465, right? He went 51st. He went 50, maybe 50 or 50 first overall. I can't remember which one it was, to Detroit, right? And because they upgraded their corner line. However, missed tackle rate, right? And in guys like Benny Bishop, 9.6%. Now, Benny Bishop played a lot more snaps than that. But you look at, let's go back to where I had Ennis Rakestraw Jr. there. He had, let's look at it, 8.3% missed tackles. He had about 40 snaps more than Ryan Watts. Ryan Watts, 2.5% missed tackles. So I said that earlier, but this is in context. He is a sure tackler. When he hits you, you're on the ground. Really interesting guy from that perspective. I wanted to just bring up 2 other things that I thought were kind of interesting. I went and looked at RAS scores because obviously when you're drafting a guy that late, he's going to be a depth piece. But when you're drafting a guy that's known for his physical attributes and measurables, that's what Ryan Watts has got in his favor because it's not the production side. Then you kind of go, well, how does that compare athletically? Because I told you about he was the 11th best cornerback, just like Cory Trice was. And then I found something really interesting when you look at the 2023 NFL draft class. The 5th, 6th, and 7th most athletic corners based on their relative athletic score or their RAS, if you've seen it on social media, were Cory Trice Jr., Darius Rush, and Joey Porter Jr. 3 guys that were prior to the draft all on the Steelers roster. Pretty crazy when you think about that. And Mike Tomlin talks about the avatars in bringing them in. Tells you the way they want to play. It tells you the way they want the secondary to be. Big, fast, rangy, and athletic. That's what they want. The Steelers are in on this. And then you go and look. So Darius Rush at 9.73. Joey Porter Jr. 9.63. Cory Trice 9.78. And then you go and look at Ryan Watts. And Ryan Watts has a 9.64. He's let down a little bit in the 40-yard dash compared to the other guys that we talked about with Porter Jr., Darius Rush, Cory Trice, which lets down his 20-yard and 10-yard split. But everything else is elite or great when you look at the RAS score. So pretty incredible when you think about the athlete that they've brought into the mix. With bigger weight, bigger size, bigger wingspan, bigger hands than Cory Trice Jr. So that brings me back to my overall starting point. Will Cory Trice be replaced by Ryan Watts? I don't think so. I don't think so because they're going to be used differently. However, if it came down between the two guys, we haven't seen anything from Cory Trice, so I do think Ryan Watts has the leg up there. But I think the Steelers, I think actually Darius Rush could be the one out because the Steelers do like developing their draft picks. Cory Trice looked very good in training camp last year as well. But the Steelers right now, besides Joe Porter, who's almost 6'2", and a really good weight, late 190s, early 200s, and a very athletic guy, have Trice, Rush, and now Watts. And all three of those guys, if you look at the two draft classes of cornerback combined, are some of the four of the most athletic guys in both draft classes. So Steelers fans, look out because we are getting some really athletic guys. It's just now about coaching them up. Terrell Austin, the DC, is a defensive backs and secondary specialist according to his resume. Mike Tomlin, look at what he's known for. And then you look at the coaching staff they already have back there in Garrett Brown, Brady Brown. He can coach. He's been the guy they picked to lead the defensive backs at the Senior Bowl, etc. So it's going to be incredible to watch these guys in camp, and it's going to be a really interesting battle. But you let me know in the comments. Are you in on Ryan Watts? Are you against Ryan Watts? There are a lot of people that were anti it when he was first picked. Or do you just want to wait and see and just trust the Steelers and trust the process? You let me know. As always, go Steelers.